Hi, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the fourth webinar of the INSEAD Business Sustainability Series from the San Francisco hub, um, in which we are discussing how to align sustainability needs of society and business objectives. And hopefully we're inspiring you also to start sustainability-driven businesses. Thanks for again joining us in great numbers. And first, just a couple of household rules before we start the webinar. Nothing new. So the audience is muted. The chat box is disabled. I hope you're going to have questions, and so please type them in the Q&A tab, and we're going to get to them in the last 15 minutes of the hour. The webinar is also recorded, so you're going to be able to share it, to look at it afterwards in a little bit. So let's take a look at where we've been and what we're going to do today. So let's take the helicopter view. And so where did we start? Back in April, okay. So we started with a masterclass where I gave a framework on how to make sustainability investments from an economic perspective. And this was complemented by two master cases, one on measuring greenhouse gases from space, and the other one was on the sustainability transformation at the Olympics in Paris with two alumni, Stéphane Germain and Georgina Grunau. In June, we had a panel with very distinguished speakers from around the world, where each one was discussing in their region sustainability trends, impact on society and business, and resulting business opportunities. Then last month in September, we had a clinic on unicorn EcoVadis, and this was all about how to start and scale a sustainability-inspired business. So what is happening today? We're getting under the hood. We're getting under the hood of the sustainability-inspired innovation machine, as I like to call it. And so we're going to look at projects, some at very early stage, some at industrial stage, to see how the sustainability-inspired innovation is working. It's really a treat to have our distinguished panelists. Let me start with Vidya, MBA 09. She is located in Silicon Valley, has a very distinguished career in product and business development. She is now at Meta, but before worked at Philips, Motorola, Publicis, at a number of tech companies. Paul Manuel, MBA 04. He's located in Silicon Valley, and he describes himself, if I'm not wrong, as a recovering Googler. Okay, so he worked for about 15 years at Google, 5 of which as chief of staff for the current CEO, and now he's struck out on his own, and so he's going to tell that story. Nana Ager Lundsgaard is joining us from Denmark. She is working with Danish Danfoss Climate Solutions and has had a distinguished career in R&D and business development. Danfoss and INSEAD, we have a special relationship. So we run executive programs for the executives of Danfoss. And so it's a 4-month program focused on what? On building sustainability-inspired businesses. And Nana is going to talk about one of these. Arnold van den Berg is located in the Netherlands, in Eindhoven, and he's working with Eastman. He's an alumnus from one of our executive programs also. And he will tell the story of Triton Renew. He's the man in the fields, and so he is facing and dealing with the customer and customer expectations and willingness to pay. And so we're going to be able to get into the nitty-gritty of those very difficult problems. So without much further ado, I would say, Paul, it's all yours.
Thank you, Carol, and great to see everybody today. So as Carol mentioned, I'm a recovering Googler. I spent almost 15 years at Google, 5 with Sundar, but then more than 7 of those working on different metrics, analytics, and growth and developer stacks. And so I think what I'll be able to talk through, in addition to the opportunities that small business provide, is how I went through my own journey to move towards sustainability and taking the things that I did in my previous career and then applying them into with a sustainability lens. So with that, on this slide, what you'll be able to see is we started from a lens of being able to apply modern analytics, modern AI, modern data processing to the sustainability problem. When I started to dig into that, what we saw was that 5,000 factories contribute almost 11% of global emissions. And then the next 200,000 factories contribute the next 10%. Those factories are actually pretty old. They look like this picture here, which is interesting because they're not what folks think of when they think of the factory of the future. They're big, they're heavy, they're not very digitally empowered. The systems that manage them are really for safety reasons. There's not a lot of analysis, there's not a lot of optimization. So we looked at that and saw that there was a big opportunity to be able to apply modern AI, modern data processing, modern analytics tools to be able to identify opportunities for energy efficiency. And when you look at the fact that the majority of the emissions that are associated with these factories are from heat-based processes, looking to heat up existing basically crude oil or iron ore and turn those into the end user products that we have today, there's tons of loss and tons of opportunity to reduce that and still have the same output. And so that's what we're chasing. And when you do that, you also save money for your customers. So we were able to find a really nice double bottom line win as an opportunity to be able to provide to the market. So next slide. Crystallizing that around the discussion that we're having today. The origins of the innovation really come from focusing on industry as one of the bigger challenges in emissions. 40% of greenhouse gases are from industry. So it's really big. And a lot of those hard to abate sectors are old factories that lack modern systems. So by being able to create a win-win by capturing significant cost and carbon savings using new modern systems, modern technologies applied to sort of the old industrial environment, we can find both sustainability and bottom line goals. And that's the way that we are able to find a win-win that is both sustainable and better for companies, for the plant managers, and for the teams on the ground. I wish I could say it's all easy. It's not. There's a lot of challenges as you go into these old environments and look to be able to apply a modern lens on the top. And some of those we actually had to think through and come up with new different ways of applying the technology. Being able to apply natural language processing to be able to understand existing data streams and turn those into basically higher order semantic structures that understand what a factory is and what that factory can be optimized for. And then targeting insights, because existing environments are just too noisy and too complex for folks to make sense out of. So being able to focus those down and use modern technology really helped us move it along. But then realizing that a lot of the existing experts are aging out of the workforce. And so we've brought a network of experts to help train our models and then drive change management, because we realize that old and new needs a personal touch to get there. But we've seen really good success. Just yesterday, actually, we were working on an optimization for a large smelting plant. And our data was able to uncover a 1% improvement just from some basic operating changes. Looking at the data, dissecting it, and seeing that slag buildup had actually reduced efficiencies. So kind of looking forward, a few of the things that we are thinking about and things that I would love to see as big opportunities for this group is really changing the conversation, especially within emissions, especially within the climate challenge, towards finding opportunities to abate emissions today. The pragmatic approach, how do we chisel away and get the change so we bend the curve now? Then being able to grow for us as a company, grow beyond our existing sectors in metals and refining to other hard to abate sectors, chemicals, cement, wood and paper products. And then from there, if I was to paint a great picture, being able to abate large segments and large swathes of emissions, so that we can actually jumpstart this ecosystem and give the world a good chance at emissions reduction. So that's where we're at. With that, I'll turn it over to Vidya.
Thank you, Paul. I'm Vidya. I'm a product lead at Meta, and I've been at Meta for 6 years and have tried to push forward innovation on the sustainability angle for most of that time. And currently, I work on the social impact team where I support consumer products that already help people who are experiencing climate change. And I'm also bootstrapping a new team which is exploring new solutions on the business side. And this was the result of an investment pitch that we made last year and secured some investment for. So to give you a flavor of the kinds of products that we're working on, a lot of it is around kind of like, I mean, the baseline is how do you help people who are already experiencing climate change? And so one of the products I work on is called Safety Check, which is helping people to communicate and ask people for help in times of distress. And a lot of millions of people use this feature, especially in climate-related disasters, which we see increasing frequency. Then we also partner heavily with like experts in climate change communication, with the likes of MIT, Cambridge, and try to figure out how to communicate and help customers understand the facts about climate change, as well as discern incorrect information. And so this is an ongoing effort where we've kind of like figured out how to communicate some of these. And then there's also initiatives that we do to kind of like help people live more sustainable lives. And so Facebook Marketplace is one of the largest e-commerce platforms in the world. And we know that a lot of consumers come there to live a more sustainable life. So there are like consumer features we build to make it easier for them to live more sustainably. So diving a little bit deeper, if you go to the next slide. I think where we see kind of most of the innovation coming is really kind of the groundswell of demand and changing attitudes, right? So the first lens is consumers, and climate is a very important social issue, especially for Gen Z and millennials. We hear that again and again, and they want to kind of see, they want to encourage, I mean, they want to express themselves, have conversations around climate, but also take actions such as like fundraise for nonprofits who are in the sustainable field, or buy products that are more sustainable. Concurrently, a large portion of the world's population, especially in the global south, is already affected by climate change, and they need tools to be able to manage that. On the business angle, more and more businesses, a huge majority of Fortune 500 businesses are already committing to net zero targets. And they come to Meta and say like, hey, when we advertise, what can we do to kind of communicate what we are already doing? And then coupled with that is that there's now emerging regulation, especially with the likes of the green claims, where we see that the space is becoming kind of more standardized and it's forcing more accountability. And all of this is kind of like leading to, at least Meta, figuring out what we can do both for like businesses and consumers, as well as like help people comply with the regulation. Of course, it's challenging. I think that one of the major challenges we have is like, in a social media platform where we cannot be seen to kind of like favor one voice over the other. How do we educate customers while also kind of like addressing climate misinformation? And so a huge effort for us is to kind of educate consumers about common techniques that are used to like spread mistruths about climate, and then help them discern and understand what is true, what is not. But at the same time, also, we partner with a host of fact checkers a lot around the world, where we kind of like actively take down content that is proven to be misinfo. Concurrently to that, like helping people affected by climate crises, I think We already see that like our fundraising tools and safety check help people through crises like almost every week. But there's also a lens of like, how do we make sure that we are really helping them? How do we mobilize on the ground assistance? What features can we build to help people navigate what they're already experiencing? And then the last piece, which is fairly new for us, is kind of like the whole kind of Venn diagram of social business value, where how can we help highlight some of the more sustainable products and businesses on our platform in a way that can drive business value, both for advertisers on our platform, but also for Meta. And so what I'm excited really about the future is kind of like really how can we develop new ways of effectively communicating about climate and educating most of the populations across the world. How do we leverage some of our new technology like Gen AI and drive more innovation in already helping people who are experiencing crises? And then how do we drive business value for the advertisers on our platform in a way that's also shifting demand to more sustainable products? So over to Arno, and thank you.
Thank you. Good day, everybody. My name is Arnold van den Berg. I'm with Eastman, based in the Netherlands. And within Eastman, 15,000 people, company almost, we have a business called Specialty Plastics, and we are a manufacturer of plastics in many different application segments, of which I'm responsible for consumer durables. So those are items that are made out of plastics that the typical consumer uses in their daily lives, in their kitchen, in their sports, in their daily activities. And many people, when they think about plastics, thank you for that slide. When they think about plastics, they have a quite negative connotation with that because of all the plastic waste that is around in the world, and that is a serious issue. Plastic waste is one of the major challenges, and even though there's a lot of recycling already taking place, actually more than 84% of all the plastic that is being disposed is not being recycled because it cannot be recycled or there's no capacity available. And of that 16% that is being collected for recycling, not everything is recycled eventually because it is not of the right quality. And that is providing a problem, of course. Eastman has been working to resolve that. And we're doing our best by, if you click to the next slide, please, to do that through a new process. The traditional mechanical recycling process takes, for example, the well-known PET bottle, the soda bottle, chops it up, melts it into something new, and then you get a new plastic bottle. But you can't do that for infinite number of cycles. After a limited number of cycles, that material is not suitable anymore, and eventually it still has to be landfilled. Our innovation we call molecular recycling. We can break that product, that plastic, down to the original molecules, the building blocks, make new plastic out of it that is of equal quality as the original material, and then can be used over and over and over again up to almost infinity. And that means that the quality of the output of that material is equally high as the original. The big thing here is that we are now able to take materials that otherwise would have ended up either in landfill or in incineration. If you could go to the next slide, please. So that's what we can do in general. So what do we make with these materials? We actually don't make items ourselves. We sell the plastic to people who make materials, consumer items out of them. And some of those well-known items are, for example, a typical sports bottle, a water bottle, or kitchen appliances, as I mentioned, a jar for a kitchen blender. And that material that's being used for those type of materials is called Triton. It's been on the market for a long time. Now we are able to also make that in with this recycled content without losing any of the quality of that material. The big challenge is do that at scale, do that at the scale that is needed for the global level. It is very capital intensive. So we've been working in the last couple of years to build this up. We have already a plant that makes these materials, And we're now investing at scale at several to build up several plants across the globe. The first is going to be active online by the end of the year, early next year in North America, in Tennessee. A next one is scheduled for Europe, in France, in a couple of years later, and then also an additional third plant is going to be online again in North America. And this is big. Think of the amount of investment in the order of $2 billion that we as a company are investing, meaning we will be able to deliver what we call renew material, Triton Renew, with this recycled content at the same performance level as what with the original non-recycled material was bringing. So what this means for our customers, our brands customers, they now have the ability to use sustainable materials with recycled content without having to compromise on quality. The typical consumer thinks a recycled plastic is an ugly plastic. It has a funny color. It is not as nice and transparent as the original, and it is not as good. Well, now that's not necessary anymore. The brands can now have ultimate quality and still claim a certain amount of recycled content in there. So that makes it possible for them to create a much stronger and better story. For us, we can combine our innovation that we've done over decades, over more than 100 years, now with this sustainability lens to it. And we can help our customers, our brands, to create better and more material solutions. So lastly, and comes back to the very first part, this molecular recycling delivers a very critical element to the transition from a linear to a circular economy. We are now able to help the market to come to endless recycling of materials, to endless recycling of plastics. And that is going to be very important. Thank you for that. And I'd like to now give the word to Nana.
Thanks a lot. Very exciting presentations, no doubt, and definitely something that we all can learn from across different industries. Within Danfoss, we have a similar experience in the sense of putting the sustainability lens into the way that we work, both with products as well as our processes and business models. And the example that I will present today is within or has been developed within the program that Carol talked about, that we as Danfoss has together with INSEAD on an executive level, really working with innovation, strategy, and culture, and where we develop different solutions within the program of INSEAD. The solution that we developed in the cohort that I was in was towards a new vertical that Danfoss was embarking upon. A vertical which in itself basically is sustainable. Sustainable in the sense of having fish farming on land. And having fish farming on land in countries of where, of course, the fish are consumed. The whole background of that, of course, leads to the fact that the temperature for the fish and in the farms needs to be on a certain level. And with that, you really need to secure that you have the right energy flow, that you have the right heat recovery from the system in itself, and also that you actually utilize the waste heat across the full aspect of the fish farming. So what Danfoss developed and can provide is a controlled system and solution to control the temperature of the fish farming, and by that also an optimized energy flow. And basically, this can be done to secure, of course, a much better output for the farmers of the land-based fish farming, but at the same time also secure a much better water quality and system balance throughout the entire lifetime of the fish themselves. If you will go to the next slide, please. So why is this important? This is really important in the fact that we all know that the population of the world actually grow, and that we all need to secure that we have a sustainable way of how we actually can provide food to more people across the world. Salmon, which is one of the fish that is in the fish farm, actually has a much higher protein output, and therefore is very attractive in the sense of having that as a greater part of our food in the future. But of course, we need to secure that we actually farm that in a sustainable way, and this is where the land-based fish farming comes in, and where again also the whole part of energy efficient solutions plays an enormous important role. What we are good at Danfoss is really to secure thermodynamic controlled systems. And what we did with this solution was not only supplying the thermodynamic control system, but also having it holistically across, and by that having a digital solution built on top, so that we all the time can control both the temperature as well as an optimized energy consumption. This leads to the fact that, of course, there are challenges towards it, because working across the entire value chain always gives challenges in truly delivering upon the value of the entire value chain. So the importance here, again, is that we really also collaborate across the full value chain, have access to the right stakeholders throughout the value chain, and make sure that everything is connected so that we get that full sector coupling through the value chain. We have already won several projects on this, but we also do see even more potential across the world, and with that and with our expertise, certainly an aspect of moving ahead. So all in all, we see this as future opportunities in really becoming an even stronger partner into the aquaculture, and by that support with our Danfoss solution, and support on the green transition towards the global food supply. We also really see this being part of our newly launched Danfoss ESG ambition, where we by 2030 have said we want to create step change initiatives within decarbonization, circularity, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this has really become the a foundation of how we actually move upon sustainability, and secure that this is embedded fully into everything of what we do in Danfoss across, as well as, of course, support our customers and the industry in lowering the carbon footprint, both when it comes to scope 2, as well as also scope 3 upstream. So all in all, we really see this coming together and delivering energy efficient solutions towards land-based fish farming, as well as also securing sustainable systems for the future. So back to you, Carol.
Thank you so much. And maybe we can switch to the, joint view. I promised you, so there was going to be a lot of variety in the projects. And as you can see, there is a ton of it, starting all the way from Paul, where you have the most impossible connection between old dusty plants and generative AI coming together and creating efficiency. Vidya, really taking care of people subject to climate change. What I also found very interesting is the whole disinformation battle. If you guys can really make a dent in this with your reach, just an enormous opportunity for that. And then, of course, you're going to get advertisers because they see that you are really addressing so many, the need of so many people. So fantastic. Arnold's already trucking along with Eastman at an industrial scale, talking billions of investments in Europe and the US, and not just in bottles, but across the space and plastics and infinite recycling. And Nana just addressing food, okay, and energy and proteins and not just salmon, it's aquaculture. And I think it goes beyond aquaculture. So it's an enormous variety, and it's so gratifying to really see that. I know that questions are coming in, but I thought of taking the opportunity to just have a discussion a little bit among ourselves, and maybe some other questions are going to be sparked us. But let me maybe start with Nana, and basically, so sustainability has been a big deal for Danfoss. You guys were early in embracing it. In what ways has your organization changed because you put on this sustainability lens on innovation?
Yeah, no doubt that Danfoss always have worked with sustainability, of course, developed throughout the time of Danfoss. And with our recently launched ESG ambition towards 2030, it has become even more embedded into everything of what we do, and also towards innovation. And two factors that are truly things that we are utilizing from an innovation perspective is the aspect of designing for circularity. So really embarking upon the circular economy by securing we already have that into the aspect of designing new products and new solutions. And this is also where digital solutions actually become even more important. The second thing is the measurement or performance measurement from an aspect of carbon footprint. Really having that as one key KPI within our innovative processes is also hugely embarked upon, and thereby also, of course, changing some of the decision making that we are doing within Danfoss.
Fantastic. Arnold, so it's not a startup, isn't it? Okay, so you've been
really,
around.
No.
You've been around since. Let me remind the audience.
103 years it is this year.
Yes, yeah. And you used to be called Eastman Kodak, and then you were split off from Kodak, and so Kodak went down and you went up. And so it's in that environment that sustainability was brought in. And how did that change innovation in your company?
Well, if we go back decades, then sustainability was typically seen as how to comply with legislation, how to comply with rules around working safely with chemicals, for example. Nowadays, that's totally turned around. And for us, it means that all innovation we do is centralized, is focusing on that sustainability in such a sense that every innovation project we do, it is measured against sustainability targets that we want to achieve. In this case, for example, on making these plastics, this Triton Renew versus the original Triton, we have made the commitment that if you have Triton Renew with the recycled content, it always has a lower carbon footprint than the original material as it was made from fossil materials. So that shows we're not only doing a solution for the plastic waste, but we're also making sure that at the same time we're reducing our carbon footprint. That means, yeah, it's now coming at the heart of our work, and it's not only for us, it's not only for society. We also see now that investors who own this company are demanding us to deliver on that. They find that ultimately important. It's not only us, it's not only consumers, it's the investment community that also sees this is the way to go forward.
Thank you. Vidya, so it's probably fair to say that Silicon Valley has not been at the forefront of sustainability, and that industrial companies have really embraced this primarily, I would say, in Europe first. And so we have two examples here. So Eastman, of course, US, but Meta has been really focusing on this. How has this changed Meta in ways that you haven't discussed yet?
Yeah, I think like the first lens of where Meta has really like invested for several years now is the lens of responsibility. So the consumer features that are available with safety check and also collaborating with academics on reducing misinformation is something that we have to do as a social media company, and we see that as a responsibility to kind of like help people with the reach of the platform, like build features where we can really connect people in distress and also address the whole topic of, you know, is climate change really happening, which can be really contentious in the US. And it is an accepted fact in the EU, right? And so how do we kind of like encourage the right discussion and communicate well? So the first lens has always been like around responsibility. I think what is emerging now is that we see that like younger people really care about buying sustainably, expressing themselves, having the right conversations. And so the interesting challenges that come up are, can we do things that can help them discover the more sustainable products on our platform through either advertising or like commerce channels? And we've run some experiments around kind of that lens, and we've seen that initially the thinking always was that there's an intent action gap, but we've actually been able to run some small scale experiments where we move business metrics as well. And so I think that the opportunity, and especially in the past couple of years, we do see that like you can drive business metrics by also you know, focusing or shifting demand to more sustainable products. And similarly with advertisers, and especially coming from Europe, but also like from policy teams in Brazil and India, they come to us and they're like, well, what can we do here? And advertisers are like, well, how do I get the same ROI on my advertising when I push some of my more sustainable products? And the challenge has been very interesting for us to think about, like, how do we enable that for advertisers, and how do we help them do the right thing?
Thank you, Vidya. Paul, let me maybe switch to the next question. I think we hear it left and right that customers, on the one hand, they care about sustainability, at least a class of them. Then at the same time, when you talk about what value do they exactly see and are they willing to pay for it, it's not an easy discussion. So you're coming out of Google, starting with a very different business. You must find customers. How is that discussion going of showing the value and finding that they are actually willing to pay for it?
Yeah, it's not easy, as you mentioned, and so I think that's where sort of a bit of determination as well as the ingenuity around problem solving and how you actually focus on solving new innovative problems. And so we kind of took a bunch of first principles, you know, even in the set of slides that I talked through, looking at where the biggest opportunities for emissions reduction were, and digging into those sectors first, and then using the tools that we had available. But then there was a lot of innovation that had to happen on the back of that. And I think I mentioned in our case for the particular market that we went after, since we were finding the double bottom line, efficiency reduction and like cost reduction and emissions reduction, that gave us one sort of North Star, but we still had to find the challenges that our customers had around workflows that were incredibly complex, data that was trapped behind silos, and users that didn't know how to think about things in a first principles way. And so that's where we've looked to add value in order to be able to bridge the willingness to pay gap. We don't have a tension, like our product actually makes things both more sustainable and less costly at the same time, which is good. But there was a lot of other things in the way that we had to do innovation around and really think hard and understand what our users' needs were.
Right, thank you. Nana, so you guys have been working across a number of products and product lines. So what's your experience?
I think definitely, as Arnold also alluded upon, I think definitely here the investment firms and thereby investors as such really have a high aspect of securing the willingness to pay, so that return on investments of specific projects, return on investments of the development further is, of course, a really proven right. On the other hand, I also have to say that carbon footprint as such is, of course, not a monetary value at this point, but there's no doubt that this is becoming a value as such in securing really having a much lower carbon footprint as industries, as products, as solutions going forward. And by that being the partner to be part of different tenders, different projects, etc. So no doubt that this becomes a part of the monetary value as well, or at least the value proposition as such. Lastly, I want to just state that also talking to the different stakeholders at customers is, of course, very important, because here it's maybe not the purchase person that you actually need to discuss the monetary value with, but really the maintenance person or the energy manager or whoever it is in the company, where it actually does make sense that you have energy efficient solutions, that you have a lower carbon footprint, etc.
Thank you. Yeah, so you were referring to the carbon permits, right? So if that becomes really obligatory mandatory for your clients, they will see the value of your energy solutions. Is that what you're, yeah.
Yes, certainly.
And that's around the corner, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and already the fact in some industries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Arnold, I know that you guys have done very sophisticated work, and I know it because I'm writing a case study on you guys. Can you say a little bit more about how you deal with willingness to pay and those kind of things?
Yeah. The problem is when customers' brands, so consumer brands, when they start to sell recycled items to consumers, those consumers have certain expectations about recycled plastics. We want to help our customers to sell recycled products to the consumer in the end. And even us as a raw material supplier, what we do is we engage the full value chain from us to our direct customers, to even further downstream, all the way down to the consumers. We interview consumers through panels. We have a dedicated department for that. We do focus group interviews. So we understand quite well how consumers perceive recycled materials, what they expect from it, what they don't like about it, or how we can actually have our customers communicate in the most optimal way to consumers on the product, on the packaging, or even in their online additional information. What is it that consumers actually would like to know more about, so that the brand can actually communicate that on their website, so consumers can find all the information they need. So we help brands in bringing the best communication to their end customer, to the consumer. And also we can help them with confidence that consumers are willing to pay a certain amount more for sustainable items. We can quantify that. We can show them that that's the case and under which conditions that is. So we help our customers not only with high quality products, but also with all the information that is needed to sell their high quality products.
From what I understand, you do this with Camelback and water bottles.
Yep.
But so you also do this with Black & Decker. You do this
indeed.
with cosmetics companies. So it's really across a range of industries. And each time you do the same type of market research?
We try to do it in many different markets. It depends a little bit, but yes, we have a dedicated consumer insights team, and they're not confined to just a single segment. We have people that work in all kinds of markets, from these consumer durables to cosmetics packaging, but also in paint, in textiles, for example, in many different directions.
Very good. So nobody has used the word regulation per se. Okay. And which is interesting, because originally it is always driven by regulation, etc. And so all the stories that I hear are maybe enabled, but I haven't really seen it was necessary to really embark on that. So if we have time, I would like to come back to this, but some questions have been coming up. And so one is from James, who raised the question, do you think we need more tech innovation, or is the challenge today to roll out at scale existing tech and solutions? So
I would say yes. I think we need a bit of both, right? There's a lot of there are a lot of very clear answers that exist today that can put a meaningful impact into the sustainability around building materials, around different types of ways that, like, the transportation sector could be evolved, around the energy sector as well. All of those, like, at scale, would make a meaningful improvement. But there still are, deeper problems that do need to be addressed, that new innovations around how to make lower carbon steels, or around how to have the energy density for, like, long range airline transport. All of those, there is still innovation. So the continuum is broad. I don't think there's any there's no shortage of problems and opportunities to reach the sort of post-industrial world. And so I think if you have a skill or an expertise, whether you're a scaling person or an innovator, there's an opportunity for you to participate and do a great job.
And I would even, if I can put some words on it as well, also, Kara, I think, and I guess that Eastman is also experiencing that, but I think also really looking into the fact of how we actually have the reverse logistic really coming through in the sense of the whole product aspect of sustainability, and by that securing take back systems, etc. Here definitely more innovative tech solutions is needed to have that linear process exactly the same the backward way. So I think here definitely there are opportunities of innovations and tech possibilities, no doubt.
Arnold. Yes, please, Vidya. Yes, please, go ahead.
I feel like there is already effective solutions available today, and there's a huge upside in making them cheaper and making them easier to adopt. One example is solar pumps, right? The process of solar panels, like applying for a solar panel and getting that on is prohibitive for most people. We had the same problem with electric cars a few years ago, but now the adoption has taken off. So I would also say that there's a huge upside in just simplifying the benefit of some of these products and solutions, as well as making them cheaper, which will make the trade-off easier for people to adopt some of those solutions as well. So I think especially with electrification, I feel like a lot of that battle can be won with existing technologies.
Thank you, Vidya. So Arnold, did you guys just go back into some technology that you had sitting on a shelf and dust it off, or how new was all of this that you're doing?
The methanolysis technology that's under the hood of this recycling process, it's not completely new at all. It had been in existence already, but decades ago, Eastman decided to put it on the shelf because there simply was no demand for it. Then bringing it back in recent years then seems straightforward, but it isn't, because you have to scale it up now to levels that were never even considered back in those days. So the challenge for us is to make it at scale, and the scale that we're thinking of, and that was one of the questions I think, is these plants are able to recycle in the order of magnitude of 150 kilo metric tons per year. That's an enormous amount per plant in the order of magnitude. And that means you need to have a lot of innovation also in the supply chain to get those feedstocks there, to process them, to pre-process them before they go into the recycling process. So there's an enormous effort going on around that. It's not only just putting all plastic into a hopper and then magically new plastic comes out.
Interesting. A couple of other questions. So Eric was raising the question. AI has been mentioned in a couple of instances, especially by Paul. In what areas could AI advance sustainability? And maybe, so we know already from Paul that you're using it, but Vidya and Nana and Arnold, are you guys relying on AI in some shape or fashion to really do this? And where else do you see opportunities? Maybe Vidya?
Yeah, so I can speak from a perspective of advertising, considering that our business model is mostly advertising. There's a huge opportunity in using AI models to serve up better recommendations to people who care about sustainable products, right? And there's a huge amount of information that we can glean from products and try to kind of like recommend the most carbon effective products. Which I think like most advertising systems don't do today, but this is information already sitting with many of our advertisers. They already know which products are more carbon effective than others. But there's a huge opportunity to use that. And like the one question that we get asked is like, well, how do I find my audience? There's this whole example of a laundry detergent that we spoke to a manufacturer, and they have like a really sustainable product, and they really make sure that every stage of kind of their manufacture and delivery is really kind of environmentally friendly. But they ask the question, well, but how do I find my customers? How do I compete with the Tides of the world? And there's a huge amount of work that like advertising can do to kind of help this like challenger brands like these be more successful in reaching the consumers that they want to.
Interesting. Nana, are you guys using AI today?
Certainly, and no doubt that this, of course, has an influence also in the aspect of optimizing system and making sure that it always runs on the most optimal cooling or heating aspect. So no doubt that that this can be used even further.
And Arnold, are you guys relying on that?
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure how it's currently being implemented, but what I do see serious interest there is if you look at waste streams, plastic waste streams, they are typically all contaminated, or it's a mix of all kinds of things, and those have to be sorted out. I see opportunities for AI to do through pattern recognition to make sure that those waste streams are sorted out in the proper way, so that the actual recycling process is done most efficiently. That's one example I could quickly think of, but I'm sure there's more opportunities.
Maybe Paul, for you, without AI, would you have a business opportunity?
I mean, the definitions of AI are really broad now. So everything from advanced statistics to machine learning to generative AI kind of fall underneath that umbrella of artificial intelligence. And I think that all of those can play different roles, and I definitely would not have a business without any one of those. And we're using each of them applied differently. I think generative AI can help solve these really complex problems, but then also make the new suggestions more palatable to users and easier to adopt in some of these really complex environments. Agriculture is just so complex that AI and machine learning can make a lot of a dent.
All right, very good. So there is a young professional that is listening, and which is fantastic. And so Annika is saying, what are the most promising and impactful fields today for young professionals entering the sustainability sector? Very broad question, but it's of course, if you're a young professional and you want to do something, they're looking to you to say, well, here are some areas that seem promising. Who wants to start?
Well, I'd say come to plastics. That business is very strong. No, actually, I can't think of many business areas where you cannot have an impact, because it's so generally demanded everywhere now that in any business wherever I'm engaging, I see that it's being requested. So I think it's more a matter of wherever you enter in your career, that you have the ability to influence that yourself. I think I would take it more from that angle.
Yeah. Sustainability becoming a priority within Meta or a nice thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I agree with Arnold. Every business has to become sustainable. I think it's a question of when we get there. Every business model has to evolve at some point. I think some have to evolve faster than others. And there's some great websites like Project Drawdown, or if you guys have read the book Speed to Scale, they break down in a very scientific way where most of the world's emissions are coming from and where you can have the biggest impact. And so transportation, food, I think are some of the most impactful kind of ways that you can reduce carbon emissions. But overall, I would say that every business has to become sustainable at some point or the other. It's a question of, I see it as a tremendous economic opportunity for businesses that move faster here, because everybody has to eventually evolve in the next decade.
Nana, I think you, as Danfoss, you must have a great insight into what sectors are craving sustainability versus what are pushing it out a little bit. Anything you can share?
Yeah, certainly. I think what we see, and maybe see very much in Europe as well, is within the construction industry that it's moving, and it's actually moving very fast these years, in the sense of securing that all of our buildings, no matter if it's a 1 and 2 family house, or if it's a department house, or apartment house, or whatever it is, it really has to start becoming more sustainable with all the construction materials and the energy consumption and so on. So no doubt that this is an area that are moving, and also moving quite fast, because it is one of the biggest carbon footprint emitters within the world. Then I think the whole food chain, certainly also a big area of where there is a lot of focus on sustainability, from farm to fork, so to speak. So certainly also here. And then not that much within the Danfoss industry, but or the Danfoss customers, but certainly also I think the textile industry is also very much moving upon the whole sustainable aspect, because it also has a large carbon footprint overall.
Very good. Yeah. Time is ticking without mercy. Do you want to add 30 seconds to that, Paul? Or so, yeah.
Really quickly, I think it's just the thing I've found is a lot of basically professions in fields that were less attractive over the years have now become more so, because if you apply a sustainability lens, suddenly a chemical engineer is a really, really important job for driving things forward, or metallurgist. So, whatever is your strength as a professional, there's likely an ingenuity-based sustainability lens you can apply to it. And that's the thing I think that a lot of us can kind of reach into and try to find.
So Annika, I think you are going to have an embarrassment of choices. Okay. So there's so many opportunities, and I very much like the way you bring it out, okay, across different sectors, and also certainly different countries. We need to move on. And so I think we had 2 more slides and to show, but first I would like to stop, okay, and say thank you to our panelists for sharing your experience in very different areas, and really sharing some insights here on sustainability as an opportunity again, and from an innovation angle. Very quickly, November 10, we're giving awards, the INSEAD Business Sustainability Awards in San Francisco. There is an award event. The Dean of INSEAD is coming. The Chairman of the Board is coming. We've built a conference about it. There are lots of people are coming. If you want to come, don't wait to really register. So that's number 1. Number 2, and so that's the last slides as we're logging off, okay, which is life continues. And so there are other webinars that are of course very attractive, who are going to be also given by Lifelong Learning. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you found it interesting. And so if you want to listen again to the speakers, the session is recorded, and also the previous ones. We continue in the spring. Thank you.